I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened with my roommate. Because once you hear this, you'll never trust the person sleeping under the same roof again. It started with the sound of someone breathing inside my room. Not outside. Not in the hallway. Inside. But when I turned on the light, no one was there. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I already knew something was wrong. You don't imagine the warm breath of someone standing right above you. You don't imagine the feeling of fingers brushing your blanket. You don't imagine the weight of a presence watching you from the darkness inches away. And the worst part? I knew my roommate was home. I heard them come in hours earlier. Except when I checked their room, they were gone. Not sleeping. Not showering. Gone. Their phone still on the bed. Shoes still by the door. Jacket still hanging. As if they had stepped out of the apartment and simply never returned. But someone, or something, was still inside with me. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just the building settling or maybe the neighbors. But then I heard it again, louder this time, breathing slow and heavy, like someone trying not to be heard. Like someone forcing themselves to stay calm while watching me. I froze. Every instinct screamed not to move, not to breathe, not to let whatever it was know that I knew. The next sound was worse. Soft footsteps. Inside my closet. My roommate's closet and mine share a thin wall. If someone is in one, you can hear them in the other. And right then I could hear the wood gently creaking, the faint rustle of clothing shifting, something brushing against hangers. I whispered my roommate's name. No answer. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. The kind of silence that presses on your chest, that makes the hairs on your arms lift, that forces your heart to beat so loudly you're afraid it will give you away. There's a moment in every horror story where the audience knows the narrator should run, but the narrator doesn't, because they're still trying to convince themselves nothing is wrong. This was that moment for me. I walked toward the closet. Slowly. Stupidly. My mind telling me to stop, my legs moving anyway. Something primal inside me knew what stood on the other side wasn't my roommate. Wasn't human. Or if it was, something was terribly, terribly wrong with them. When my hand touched the doorknob, the metal was warm. Warm. Like someone's hand had just been gripping it. Warm, like someone had been standing there for a long, long time. My breath caught. I didn't open the door. Because at that exact second, through the thin crack between the panels, something exhaled. Long, slow. Deliberate. Not scared. Not surprised. Like it had been waiting for me to come closer. And then in a voice that mimicked my roommate's, but deeper, distorted, wrong, it whispered. Why did you stop? My name is Daniel, I'm 23, and until a few months ago, I thought I had the most boring, predictable life in the world. I lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment just outside downtown, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happened. Nothing strange. Nothing worth remembering. It was the kind of apartment complex filled with college students, young professionals, and tired people who just wanted to come home, microwave something cheap, and sleep. That's all I ever wanted too. My roommate Evan and I weren't best friends, but we got along well enough. He worked nights at a hospital and I worked mornings at a tech repair shop, so most days we barely saw each other. It was perfect, quiet, predictable, and peaceful. No drama. No problems. Just two people sharing rent and living their lives separately. The night everything changed started out painfully ordinary. It was a Thursday around 9:30 p.m. I remember the exact time because I had just finished a late shower and was scrolling on my phone, half asleep on the couch while some background Netflix show played. The air conditioner hummed softly through the vents. The hallway light buzzed. It always did, and I always told myself I'd get around to fixing it. The smell of laundry detergent still drifted faintly from the dryer. It was warm inside, cozy, familiar. Nothing felt wrong. Nothing hinted at what was coming. I had made myself a cup of tea, something I never usually did, but I'd been trying to sleep earlier and wake up earlier. I remember thinking about how quiet the apartment felt without Evan around. He had texted me earlier saying he'd be home by 10. A normal message. A normal night. I stretched out on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling TikTok while my tea cooled. I remember laughing at some stupid video. I remember thinking about what groceries I needed the next morning. I remember feeling calm, completely, utterly calm. The apartment around me felt safe in the way only home can. The soft clatter of pipes behind the walls, the occasional footsteps upstairs, the humming fridge, all the familiar sounds you never even notice. The living room lamp cast a warm yellow glow, and the shadows sat quietly where they always did. I didn't even lock the front door. I almost never did when I knew Evan was on his way home. That's how comfortable I was. Outside, the street was quiet. Only the distant hum of cars. No wind. No rain. Clear sky. A peaceful, almost boring night. I walked to my bedroom and folded some laundry. My cat, Milo, rubbed against my leg, purring. He seemed unusually calm too, curling up at the foot of the bed as if nothing in the world could disturb him. Animals always know when danger is coming, and he didn't sense anything at all. At 9:58 my phone buzzed. I assumed it was Evan letting me know he was parking, but it was just a reminder from my bank about a payment due. Normal. Boring. Expected. I placed my clothes in the drawer, stretched, and looked around my room. Everything was in its place. My desk pushed against the window, my posters perfectly aligned, my nightstand cluttered with books I'd never finish. Life felt balanced. Ordinary. One of those nights you forget even happened. I had no reason to be scared. No reason to suspect that within the next hour, I would question everything I knew about my roommate, about my home, about reality itself. And if I had known what was already inside the apartment with me that night, I would have locked the door. I would have left the lights on. I would have gotten in my car and driven until sunrise. But I didn't know. Not yet. It started with something so small, so ordinary that I didn't even look up at first. A soft tap. Like someone lightly flicking the wall with a fingernail. I was still sitting on my bed, scrolling my phone, half thinking about getting up to turn off the living room lamp I'd forgotten about. The tap came again, slightly louder this time. Tap, tap, tap. I frowned, listening. It wasn't unusual for the pipes to make noise, and sometimes Milo knocked things over while wandering around, but this didn't sound like that. It was too rhythmic, too intentional. I stood up and walked to the doorway, expecting to see Milo batting at a bag or chasing dust. But he wasn't. He was still curled on my bed, head lifted, ears locked toward the hallway. That unsettled me more than the noise itself. Animals don't sit frozen like that unless they hear something real. I stepped into the hall, and the apartment felt different. Still quiet, still familiar, but the air carried a faint heaviness, like the moment before a thunderstorm when everything goes still. The hallway light buzzed louder than usual. An irritated, angry hum. Evan called out softly. No answer. But I knew he wasn't home yet. I hadn't heard keys or the door, or his usual habit of dropping his backpack loudly onto the floor. I took a few steps forward. Nothing looked out of place. The living room lamp glowed warmly, casting soft shadows along the walls. My cup of tea on the table sat untouched, the faint steam long gone. And then something shifted, just a feeling, but sharp enough that I stopped walking. The apartment felt watched. Like someone was standing just out of sight, just behind a corner, just inside a shadow. The feeling settled in my chest slowly, cold and breathing. I shook it off. I told myself I was being dramatic, that I just scared myself by watching too many horror videos earlier. I turned toward the kitchen to get water. And then another sound. Not tapping this time, something softer. A faint shuffle. A barely there scrape against the floor. I froze, listening hard. Milo jumped down from the bed and trotted into the hallway, fur puffed slightly, tail stiff. He wasn't panicking, but he wasn't relaxed anymore either. He walked straight to the living room doorway and stared at the dark corner near the coat rack. I swallowed. There's nothing there, I whispered, to him or to myself, I wasn't sure. But he didn't blink. Didn't move. Just stared. I reached for the light switch, flipping it on even though the lamp already lit most of the room. Something about adding more light made me feel safer, but only for a second. That heaviness in the apartment didn't go away. I walked to the front door to double-check the lock. It was unlocked. I told myself I had just forgotten. That I always forgot. That it was nothing. But still, locking it made me breathe a little easier. As the bolt clicked into place, I felt a tiny sense of control return. Until I turned around. The living room, perfectly normal seconds ago, felt wrong now. Too still. Too quiet. Too aware of me. The shadows seemed slightly longer. The corners slightly darker. The air slightly colder. Nothing dramatic. Nothing dangerous. But wrong. I walked slowly toward the couch, listening. The only sounds were the fridge humming and the distant traffic outside. Yet underneath that, faint and crawling, was something else. A whisper-soft movement. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Just movement. I told myself it was Evan. Maybe he had come in quietly, maybe he was in his room, maybe I had missed the sound. That made sense. It had to. Evan. I called again. Silence. I walked to his door and pressed my ear against it. Nothing. No rustling. No shifting. Just the thick, still air of an empty room. I stepped back, the unease now pulsing like a heartbeat. Something wasn't right. Something small, invisible, crawling beneath the normal surface of the apartment. The kind of wrong you notice only when you're alone. When the house knows you're listening. And the longer I stood there, the more I felt it. Like something in the apartment had just turned its attention toward me. I don't know why I opened Evan's bedroom door. I think part of me needed certainty. Proof that the sounds, the heaviness, the strange tension in the air were all in my head. Proof that there was nothing wrong. But the moment my hand touched the doorknob, a cold rush shot up my arm. Not a draft. Not imagination. Cold. Like touching metal left in a freezer. My breath hitched, but I turned the knob anyway and slowly pushed the door open. The darkness on the other side wasn't normal darkness. It felt thick, like walking into black water. The air inside was somehow heavier, colder, almost humming with a pressure that made my eardrums tighten. Evan. I whispered, even though I already knew he wasn't in there. No answer. But something moved. Not a shuffle, not footsteps, just the faintest ripple of shadow across the floor. As if the darkness itself was shifting. I froze. My brain tried to rationalize it, streetlight shadows, my own movement, anything, but deep down, something primitive inside me knew what I had just seen. Something that was not a trick of the light. The darkness twisted again. This time higher. Near the corner of the room. I stepped backward, pulse hammering. My throat went tight. Every instinct screamed at me to close the door, to run, to leave the apartment entirely, but I couldn't move. Because as my eyes adjusted, I realized the darkness wasn't just shifting. It was shaped. A silhouette. Tall. Thin. Impossible to ignore now that I saw its outline. A figure stood in the far corner of Evan's room. So still, so impossibly still, it almost blended with the shadows. But its height was wrong. Its posture was wrong. Its presence was wrong. And then it moved its head. Not slowly. Not naturally. It snapped toward me with a sharp twitching motion. Like something learning how to imitate a human turn. The heaviness in the air dropped at once, crashing over me like a weight. The entire apartment felt smaller, suffocating. The way a room feels right before a predator pounces. I stumbled back, gripping the doorframe as my heartbeat slammed in my ears. What the hell? The figure stepped forward. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear breathing. Just the tiny, brittle sound of its joints clicking as it unfolded itself out of the corner. My voice vanished. I couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was stare. Its limbs were too long. Its movements were too sharp. Its shape flickered slightly, as if it didn't fully belong in the light. I slammed the door hard and staggered back, hitting the wall. The door shuddered. Once. Twice. Like something pressed against the other side, not pushing, not trying to open it, just testing it. Feeling it. A thin, dragging sound slid down the inside of the door, as if long fingers traced its surface from top to bottom. I covered my mouth with both hands, trying to quiet my breathing. My chest felt tight, my vision blurred. The atmosphere of the apartment had changed completely. It wasn't subtle now. Every corner felt soaked in dread, every shadow deeper, every sound magnified. This wasn't unease anymore. It was danger. Immediate and absolute. My phone buzzed. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I pulled it out with shaking hands. It was Evan. Home in 5. You need anything. Home in 5. Meaning he wasn't here. Meaning the thing in his room wasn't him. Meaning the thing I saw with a clear mind. I forced my trembling legs to move. I backed away from Evan's door, eyes glued to it in case the handle turned. My thoughts raced so fast I could barely breathe. There was something in the apartment with me. Something aware of me. Something watching me even now. And worst of all, it had been inside long before I noticed. The silence outside Evan's door didn't feel like safety. Felt like waiting. Like whatever was inside had shifted its attention toward me. I forced myself backward down the hallway step by step, never taking my eyes off the door. My breath came in sharp, shallow bursts. Every instinct screamed to run, but some other instinct, older, animal, told me that sudden movement might provoke it. My phone buzzed again. A second message from Evan. Here in 2. Door unlocked. Unlocked. No, not anymore. But that meant Evan would try to open it, which meant I needed to warn him. I turned toward the living room and froze. The door to Evan's room slowly clicked. A soft sound. Barely there. And then the handle twitched. Just once. A tiny, curious movement. My body reacted before my brain could. I spun and sprinted toward the living room door, hands fumbling at the lock. My fingers shook so violently I could barely grip it. Behind me, the door handle to Evan's room turned again. This time harder. Slow. Deliberate. I twisted the lock, click, and yanked the door open. Cold air rushed in from the hallway. I stumbled out, but something moved behind me. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Just the sound of something rising. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to. Every cell in my body begged me not to look at it again. I bolted down the apartment hallway, my socks sliding on the polished floor, heart pounding so violently it hurt. Halfway to the stairs, my phone buzzed again. Evan. I answered on instinct, breathless. Don't come up. I hissed. Something's wrong, something's in the apartment, don't? A faint scraping sound came from behind me. Not far. Too close. Evan's voice crackled through the phone, confused. Wait, what do you mean something's in? I'm telling you, do not come inside. I reached the stairwell, and the lights flickered. The air shifted. A sudden heaviness washed over me again. The same suffocating weight I felt in his room. My legs nearly buckled. And then I heard it. A low, wrong, glitching creak like bones bending the wrong way. It was coming down the hallway. Slow. Quiet. Controlled. I sprinted down the stairs, gripping the railing so hard my knuckles burned. Every sound behind me made me move faster. The faint tap-tap-tap of something long dragging against the wall. The soft click of joints snapping into place. The whisper of something too tall brushing the ceiling. I hit the ground floor hallway at full speed, slipped on the tile, almost fell. My phone flew out of my hand, skidding across the floor. Daniel. Evan's voice crackled from the speaker. Hello. What's going on? But I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe enough to speak. I grabbed the phone, sprinted toward the front exit, and shoved the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Cold night air hit me. I stumbled outside, dropping to my hands and knees on the concrete, lungs burning. My heartbeat throbbed behind my eyes. For one brief moment I felt safe. Then the lobby lights flickered. Once. Twice. And I saw it. A shape, tall, thin, bending unnaturally as it emerged at the top of the stairwell. Not fully visible. Just a silhouette against the hallway glow. It paused. Not because it was afraid. Not because it was unsure. Paused like it was studying me. Learning me. My body went rigid. I stood slowly, backing away across the sidewalk. The figure leaned forward. Long, wrong. Predatory. Then it moved. Not running. Not walking. Just appearing at the bottom step in a single impossible jarring shift like skipping frames in a video. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran into the parking lot, legs shaking so violently I could barely stay upright. A car honked. Someone shouted. I didn't look back. All I heard was that faint glitching creak behind me, growing closer, slow, patient, relentless. And for one horrifying moment, I realized it wasn't chasing me to catch me. It was chasing me because it wanted me to run. I don't know how long I ran. At some point I stopped feeling my legs, stopped hearing my own breath, stopped noticing anything except the pounding terror pushing me forward. I remember reaching the far end of the parking lot and collapsing behind a row of cars, trying to hide my trembling body from the open space. For a long moment there was nothing. No scraping. No creaking. No shifting shadow sliding around the corner. Just silence. Cold, empty silence. I dared to lift my head. The entrance to the apartment building was quiet, lit by the weak yellow glow of the flickering lobby lights. No figure in the doorway. No unnatural shape waiting for me. No long limbs stretching into the stairwell. It was gone. Or hiding. I crawled backward until I was fully shielded by another car. gripping my phone so tightly my hands hurt. Evan's voice was still faintly coming through the speaker, panicked, confused, desperate for answers. I finally managed to whisper, "Don't come up. Don't go inside. Something's wrong." He didn't believe me at first. Why would he? I barely believed myself. But something in my voice must have convinced him. He stayed in his car, engine running, headlights pointed toward the building like he was trying to burn away the shadows. He found me a few minutes later, crouched behind the parked cars, shaking too hard to stand. He helped me into the passenger seat, locked the doors, and drove us away from the complex without a word. Only when we were several blocks away did he finally ask, "What did you see?" But I couldn't answer. Because how do you explain something you don't understand? How do you describe a darkness that wasn't just dark? How do you describe movement that wasn't quite in this reality? We ended up in a 24-hour diner, sitting in a booth under painfully bright lights. The normal noise of clinking silverware and humming conversation should have comforted me. It didn't. Everything felt distant, muffled, like I was still half inside the nightmare. When I finally found the words, they didn't feel real coming out of my mouth. "There was something in your room." Evan stared at me, eyebrows tight with disbelief. "You mean like a burglar? A person?" "No," I whispered. "Not a person." He asked what it looked like. I couldn't answer that either. Every time I tried to picture it clearly, my mind recoiled like it was touching something sharp. We called security from the diner. They checked the apartment. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No broken locks. Nothing missing. Nothing moved. Evan's room was exactly how he left it. The closet door was open, but he told me he must have left it that way earlier. The shadows looked normal now. Nothing tall or thin or distorted. Nothing crouching in the corner. Just an empty room. They checked the hallway cameras too. Nobody entered the apartment. Nobody left. Not even me. It didn't make sense. Eventually, they let us go back inside to grab essentials so we could sleep at Evan's friend's place for the night. I didn't want to go in, but leaving without our things felt impossible too. When we entered the apartment, everything was exactly as before. Too normal. Too untouched. Like nothing had ever been wrong. But one thing wasn't right. On the inside of Evan's bedroom door, halfway down, was a long, thin scratch. Not deep. Not violent. Just one single, precise line. As if something sharp had lightly pressed there. As if something tall had traced its finger against the wood. Right about the height where a head would be, if it were tilting to study someone. Evan insisted it was old. That he made it moving furniture months ago. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I didn't argue. We left the apartment immediately after. But later that night, when I finally tried to sleep at his friend's place, lights on, door locked, blanket pulled to my chin, I heard something familiar through the quiet. A faint, irregular tap, tap, tap on the wall. Too soft to be pipes. Too steady to be random. Like something was reminding me it knew where I went. And it wasn't finished. Not yet.